Russian President Vladimir Putin pays North Korea his first visit in 24 years.
Germany's national security remains tense, according to the country's interior minister. Nancy Faeser said at a press conference in Berlin this week that measures to thwart internal and external political attacks have ramped up. It comes as her agency hands down its annual report for 2023.
Vor allem Russland, China und der Iran setzen ihre Nachrichtendienste umfassend zur Spionage gegen Deutschland ein. Hinzu kommen Versuche, durch Propaganda, Lügen und Desinformation Einfluss auf demokratische Staaten zu nehmen und Wut und Hass zu säen oder zu verstärken. Zudem gibt es weiterhin Versuche, hier lebende Oppositionelle zu überwachen und zu verfolgen.
The president of the German Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution also mentioned increasing far-right and far-left offences.
Die Vernetzungsaktivitäten der sogenannten neuen Rechten haben weiter zugenommen. Die Bedeutung dieser Akteure für die Binnenstruktur der rechtsextremistischen Szene steigt. Die von gewaltbereiten Linksextremisten ausgehenden Gefahren sind unvermindert hoch. Das zeigen gut geplante, brutale Angriffe auf politische Gegner, erhebliche Gewalt gegen die Polizei sowie schwere Brandanschläge auf Unternehmen und kritische Infrastruktur.
Meanwhile, 3 individuals faced court in Munich this week over allegations they were involved in a violent plot to overthrow the German government. The trio are part of a larger pool of 26 far-right affiliated defendants accused of scheming to storm national parliament and arrest lawmakers, according to prosecutors.
Despite hopes, the leaders' meeting in Brussels ended with no political deal on EU top jobs. Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in Yakutia, Russia's far east, en route to visit North Korea for the first time in 24 years on Tuesday, according to officials. A visit that intends to reinforce ties with leader Kim Jong-un, an old ally that supports Moscow's war in Ukraine. According to Putin, they intend to cooperate closely to overcome US-led sanctions, as they are both locked in separate confrontations with the United States, Russia over its invasion of Ukraine, and North Korea over its advancing nuclear program. In September, Kim sparked concerns in the West about an arms alliance between the two as he traveled to Russia's far east to meet Putin and visit several military sites.
Germany's national security remains tense, according to the country's interior minister. Nancy Faeser said at a press conference in Berlin this week that measures to thwart internal and external political attacks have ramped up. It comes as her agency hands down its annual report for 2023.
Vor allem Russland, China und der Iran setzen ihre Nachrichtendienste umfassend zur Spionage gegen Deutschland ein. Hinzu kommen Versuche, durch Propaganda, Lügen und Desinformation Einfluss auf demokratische Staaten zu nehmen und Wut und Hass zu säen oder zu verstärken. Zudem gibt es weiterhin Versuche, hier lebende Oppositionelle zu überwachen und zu verfolgen.
The president of the German Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution also mentioned increasing far-right and far-left offences.
Die Vernetzungsaktivitäten der sogenannten neuen Rechten haben weiter zugenommen. Die Bedeutung dieser Akteure für die Binnenstruktur der rechtsextremistischen Szene steigt. Die von gewaltbereiten Linksextremisten ausgehenden Gefahren sind unvermindert hoch. Das zeigen gut geplante, brutale Angriffe auf politische Gegner, erhebliche Gewalt gegen die Polizei sowie schwere Brandanschläge auf Unternehmen und kritische Infrastruktur.
Meanwhile, 3 individuals faced court in Munich this week over allegations they were involved in a violent plot to overthrow the German government. The trio are part of a larger pool of 26 far-right affiliated defendants accused of scheming to storm national parliament and arrest lawmakers, according to prosecutors.
President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, appears still on track to take a second term, although EU leaders could not formally agree a deal on her position or the other top jobs that are due to be decided following the European Parliament elections. EU heads of state and government met in Brussels for the first time since the election to take stock of the results and discuss potential candidates for three top jobs: the President of the European Commission, the President of the European Council and the EU's foreign policy chief. Forerunners for the other two jobs include former Prime Minister of Portugal, Anthony Costa, and Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas. Current President of the European Council, Charles Michel, told journalists there is still much more discussion to be had within the groups.
It's just a good conversation. It goes in the right direction, I think, but there is no agreement tonight at this stage. The political parties are playing a role, and this is natural in such a political moment. They made proposals, and we'll have the occasion in the days to come to work further and to prepare the decisions that we need to make.
Well, expectations of an early breakthrough last night were deemed far too optimistic, but Ursula von der Leyen is still in pole position to become President of the European Commission for a second time around. However, negotiations will be tough, particularly with her chosen coalition partners, the Greens and the Socialists, who will want guarantees from her that she is committed to the centre holding and not tempted to move to the far right towards groups that have grown in number and in stature. Shona Murray, Euronews, Brussels.
Spain's civil guard, supported by Europol and the United States FBI, has dismantled one of the largest media centres linked to so-called Islamic State. Spanish authorities have also arrested 9 people in Girona, Cadiz, Almeria and Tenerife. 2 of them have been remanded in custody. The centre's servers were used to disseminate worldwide propaganda through radio stations, news agencies and social media, and sent messages capable of inciting terrorism in at least 30 languages. The network ordered the unsuccessful attack on a bus carrying Real Madrid footballers and also sent messages encouraging attacks on the Euros in Germany and the Paris Olympics.
Impunity is over, declared Ylva Johansson, Commissioner for Home Affairs, at a meeting on sexual and labour trafficking of human beings. Figures collected by Europol in April show 55 of the most dangerous criminal networks in Europe engage in trafficking.
I'd like also to thank you very much.
Last year, traffickers generated over $200 billion worldwide. We are now countering the culture of impunity with the new EU asset recovery rules that I put forward. We'll take away the fast cars, big houses and mountains of cash from the criminals.
The anti-trafficking directive proposed by the EU aims to make so-called knowing use a crime in all member states.
In the updated anti-trafficking directive, I've made sure it will soon be a crime in the whole European Union to knowingly use the service of trafficked victims. Previously, this was only criminalized in a few member states, and now we're ending this patchwork of practices.
Russia's war against Ukraine has also put Ukrainian refugees at risk of human traffickers and exploitation.
Ukrainian women and children remain vulnerable and a target. The threat is not over. We need to remain vigilant. And I'm glad in March, Europol set up an operational task force against traffickers targeting Ukrainians.
Sexual exploitation isn't the only form of human trafficking. 40% of all victims are trafficked for labour exploitation. A joint action involving 31 countries and Europol to address labour exploitation of non-EU nationals and refugees was launched in April.
This resulted in 51 arrests and the identification of 334 potential victims. Inspections were conducted across sectors such as catering, food processing, beauty services, logistics, agriculture and construction.
The new directive will also help to tackle new kinds of trafficking, such as of surrogate mothers, forced marriage and illegal adoption.
Despite the huge expectations and millions of big spending funds, experts agree that Euro 2024 won't be able to pull Germany's economy out of years of stagnation. According to a sports economist at the University of Cologne, research shows that in the big picture, similar sporting events have a minimal economic impact. The balance actually may be even negative at the end of the day.
There's substitution mechanisms at play, which are basically that people don't necessarily spend more money, but they just spend it in a different way. So that means that while normally people would go to the cinema, they would go to the theater, now they just go to the games, spend maybe money here, in the bars, in, I don't know, prepare barbecues at home.
4 of the 10 host cities are in and around the Ruhr area, the once heavy industry heart of Germany, but following the coal and steel crisis of the 1970s, the region shifted towards other services like office buildings or even becoming tourism destinations.
A Ruhrvidék átalakulásának egyik emblematikus helyszíne az esseni Zollverein szénbánya. Az óriási rozsdásodó épületek között ma turisták sétálnak, de a foci fontossága itt is tetten érhető. A környék tele van a helyi csapatok matricáival.
Football fans tend to splash out during big sporting events, but how much do they actually spend?
Maybe 100, 150 a day if we're drinking a lot and eating good food and stuff, but we're having fun, so it's okay.
Most of the money goes to bar, hotel and restaurant owners. Room prices have been skyrocketing ahead of the Euros. Some of those fans who weren't able to find an accommodation decided to opt for sleeping in cars.